Yeah! 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 Ladies and gentlemen, the big fat guru here, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The big fat guru here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you something, people. Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC. That's right. You heard it here from the big fat guru, the big tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah! 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 That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Robert Whittaker's big penis falls out of his trousers, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, yeah! 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 Tonight, Robert Whittaker, my favorite fighter, Robert Whittaker, the big tub of lard right here, Robert Whittaker's my favorite fighter, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? Because he's got a big penis, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not even sure that Sophie knows that he has a big penis, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker has a big penis. You know who doesn't have a big penis? CJ Cejudo, baby. That's right. CJ Cejudo. Henry Cejudo. Whatever his name is. Who cares? I'm the big fat guru. You know? Henry Cejudo. Little tiny penis, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker. Tonight, his big penis falls out of his pants. Lay right down on the cage, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a sight to see, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The big fat MMA guru here, ladies and gentlemen. How many people? We've got at least, what? 0 people high on views right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. I'm the big fat guru. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, Robert Whittaker comes out. And after he unleashes his big penis, and you heard it from the MMA guru that Robert Whittaker has a big penis, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier today, we had the hot clam fight, ladies and gentlemen. We had Amanda Ribas versus Tabatha Ricci, ladies and gentlemen. That was one hot clam fight, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen. The big fat MMA guru and Conor McGregor are here lifting weights, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We're going to show you some footage of me, the big fat MMA guru, lifting weights with my buddy Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah! That's right, ladies. Yeah, 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 yeah. Me and Conor McGregor. You see him? Me and Conor McGregor are going to be lifting weights with our penises, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. And after the fights, the man with the big penis, Robert Whittaker, is going to show me and Conor McGregor how to lift weights with, with a real man's penis, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The MMA guru and Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen, lifting weights, commentating the fights, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Yeah! You got Reinier de Ridder walking out to the ring, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to give you a play-by-play here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, ladies and gentlemen, you have Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen, down here. Can you see him? Bryce Mitchell went down, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, here's de Ridder. You see him right here? Right here. Robert Whittaker with his big penis, ladies and gentlemen. And then Reinier de Ridder, ladies and gentlemen, right down here on his knees, ladies and gentlemen. The greatest referee of all time, ladies and gentlemen, for today's fight right here, Andrew Glenn, ladies and gentlemen. In de Ridder's corner right here, none other than Bryan Battle, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, in Robert Whittaker's corner right here, Derrick Moneyberg, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We got Conor McGregor. Me, myself, the big fat MMA guru. The big fat MMA guru and myself. Wait a minute. I am the big fat MMA guru. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Myself, the big fat MMA guru, and Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen, are going to be lifting weights with our penises later on, ladies and gentlemen. And Robert Whittaker, the man with the biggest penis in the UFC, is going to come in and lift weights with your favorite YouTuber, the MMA Guru, and Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a sight to see, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, holding the hand of truth right here, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Perry, ladies and gentlemen. I'll eat everything you got. You hear me? Hey, Big Ben Rothwell. I'm Mike Perry, and I'll eat everything you got. You hear me, Big Ben Rothwell? I'll eat everything you got. Says Mike Perry, you know. Over here, we got Robert Whittaker walking into the cage, gentlemen. We got to go around the room first here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, you have the Sewer King on top of Big Ben Rothwell right here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, you got Dana White and the Money Machine. Right here, Nina Drama. Nina Drama's had a couple of boyfriends on this fight, ladies and gentlemen. She's been looking for a belt, you know, in every weight class, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Right here, Bryce Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen. Over here, commentating in the bald head right here, ladies and gentlemen, DC. The other bald head right here, Joe Rogan, ladies and gentlemen. The man with the warrior haircut right there, ladies and gentlemen, Mos from the MMA-holes, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. And holding my microphone right here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, Mickie Gall, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we got, ladies and gentlemen, the big MMA guru here, the big fat tub of lard, is watching Robert Whittaker take his clothes off, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the man that brought it to you, that Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. What an exciting fight this is going to be. Hopefully Robert Whittaker's big member is going to fall out and scare everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Not even sure if Sofia Whittaker knows that Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC. That's right. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Whittaker stepping into the octagon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know how he could, you know, with all that extra weight, with that big penis, how he could even walk around without tiring himself, ladies and gentlemen. He must have some serious cardio, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me right now, ladies and gentlemen. This is serious, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to me. The MMA guru, I just want to let you know, I only got about another month or two On YouTube left, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. I only got another month or 2 left. That's right. The Big Fat MMA Guru is going to be leaving you, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Me, the Big Fat MMA Guru, I'm going to take the torch and I'm going to give it to Simon FECK, ladies and gentlemen, because they're kicking me off of YouTube here, ladies and gentlemen. It's sad, ladies and gentlemen. Me, the Big Tub of Lard, isn't going to be able to do commentating on YouTube anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I won't even be able to wreck anybody's lives, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? So we got Big Joe. We should have Kody. We should have Big Kody, Big Mommaerts, instead of Big Joe. Ladies and gentlemen. Right here, announcing, ladies and gentlemen, announcing the Whittaker de Ridder fight, ladies and gentlemen, in Abu Dhabi, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the ring announcer for today's UFC Abu Dhabi, ladies and gentlemen, none other than Kody Big Mommaerts. Did you hear me, ladies and gentlemen? Kody Mommaerts, the Big Mo. Let's get ready to get famous, ladies and gentlemen. Down goes Bryan Battle, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Who needs Big Joe anyways? I should tell you a story. There it is. The Big Mo, ladies and gentlemen. Your ring announcer for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Big Mo, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, stepping in, getting the final instructions, ladies and gentlemen. You got Robert Whittaker with the big penis, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC. Yeah! That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Simon FECK sucks balls, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the MMA Guru, and I'm going to tell you right now that Simon FECK sucks balls, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You know who doesn't suck balls? The FightFairie. The FightFairie does not suck balls, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Down goes de Ridder, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder right here begging. Ladies and gentlemen, Mickie Gall holding my microphone, ladies and gentlemen. And the fight has become, look, they're just holding hands, ladies and gentlemen. The Big Fat MMA Guru said this is going to go 5 rounds, ladies and gentlemen, into decision. But Mos from the MMA-holes was questioning the Big Fat Tub of Lard, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. If you call this fighting, okay, I was told that both camps got together and they said, let's hold each other for 5 rounds, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it goes. That's right. You heard Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis told you how it is. People call each other on the phone, ladies and gentlemen. It's nothing but a big circus act, ladies and gentlemen. It's no big secret. I mean, Simon FECK will tell you that. I'm the Big Fat MMA Guru, and I'll tell you that. Simon FECK will tell you this is nothing but a big circus, ladies and gentlemen. These 2 guys got together and said, let's hold hands. It's going to go 5 rounds to decision, ladies and gentlemen. Here they go. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. They're in for a big takedown. De Ridder goes down for a big takedown. Yeah. Big excitement. Yeah. Woo, yeah. Hopefully Robert Whittaker's penis falls out, ladies and gentlemen. It's unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Robert Whittaker comes out. He does a little stutter step, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Exciting, ladies and gentlemen. Real exciting, ladies and gentlemen. I went this whole time and didn't make this thing huge yet. You gotta be kidding me, man. Ladies and gentlemen. You gotta be kidding me, man. You gotta be kidding me. You guys don't tell me that the background looks like crap? Way to go, man. That's why we ain't never gonna get nowhere. De Ridder backs away from Robert Whittaker. This is going to be 5 rounds of shit. I'm telling you right now. Simon FECK already told me. These two guys called each other on the phone. Their camps called each other on the phone. This is going to be nothing but a hold. And I already been telling you already, it's going to be just holding for 5 rounds. Mos from the MMA-holes crushing him. Simon FECK saying, oh, you think it's going to go to a decision? I said, yes. Little bit of inside information from Simon FECK, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder circling around, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder, oh, De Ridder swinging a miss. Robert Whittaker lands with a left, ladies and gentlemen. A wild left, ladies and gentlemen. A little haymaker, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker coming up, landing a couple kisses. You know what? These two guys are friends, okay? This is a bunch of bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. That's the end of round 2, ladies and gentlemen. We got 3 more rounds of shit, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Whittaker's penis falls out, flops down on the mat, and everybody goes running and screaming, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe a couple of the card girls will jump in the ring and cover it up, ladies and gentlemen. For everybody's relief, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. There's Robert Whittaker sitting down on his stool, ladies and gentlemen. They call it the blue corner and the red corner, but they're not in the corner. You see what I'm saying? Put the chair in the corner, and then you can call it the red corner and the blue corner, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! It's so stupid. Stop following boxing. Call it the blue wall, the blue fence, and the red fence. If they're not going to be in the corner, it's not a corner. And nobody can corner anybody if they're not in the corner. But De Ridder's going to be in the corner, ladies and gentlemen. The fight's back on, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be another round of bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. These, like I said, Simon FECK already told me, these two guys, both their camps called each other, and they said, Let's put on a show, but let's don't hurt each other too bad, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, when I go for a takedown, don't knee me in the face. Derrick Lewis already told you, man. The UFC is getting to be a circus, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from me, the Big Fat MMA Guru, who heard it from Simon FECK, ladies and gentlemen, who heard it from Chael Sonnen, ladies and gentlemen, who heard it from Daniel Cormier, ladies and gentlemen, who heard it from Dana White, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's nothing but a big circus. You want to go ahead and put your money on this? You're a big turd, ladies and gentlemen, like me, the MMA Guru. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah. Look, Robert Whittaker got the guy out of the way, ladies and gentlemen. I seen that coming from over here in North America, ladies and gentlemen. It's crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah, they're just walking around. Hit somebody. This ain't nothing but child's play, ladies and gentlemen. These guys ain't going to fight each other. That's right, you heard it here from the MMA Guru, the big fat turd. I'm a millionaire. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah, de Ridder's getting a left. Oh, left jab. Oh, let me go like this. Bunch of fucking bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. Next time I'm going to give you a 4-day warning what's going to go on when there's another one like this. This fight is bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully Robert Whittaker's huge penis is going to fall out, ladies and gentlemen. And you heard it here from MMA Guru. The MMA Guru is the one that brought it to you with the great journalism that Robert Whittaker has a huge penis, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, well, they got him tied up in the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Got a little bit of side guard going on, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not even the end of round 2. I thought it was like round 7. This is so exciting, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder's right in there. De Ridder's holding right over the top of that big, big penis of Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the MMA Guru and Conor McGregor are lifting weights together, ladies and gentlemen, as we're commentating on this boring fight, the Whittaker versus de Ridder, ladies and gentlemen. After the fight, Conor McGregor, myself, the Big Fat MMA Guru, the Big Tub of Lard, ladies and gentlemen, are going to be lifting weights with our penises with Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen. Win or lose, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Oh, my God. Look at Robert Whittaker covering up like a big pussy, ladies and gentlemen. Let it rain down on you, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. We got Mickie Gall holding my microphone, ladies and gentlemen. This fight, why do they even have commentators? Why fly the commentators over there when you're going to have boring fights like this, ladies and gentlemen? Listen, does anybody know, does Robert Whittaker have grandkids? Does anybody know if Robert Whittaker has grandkids? Isn't Robert Whittaker a big English turd, ladies and gentlemen? Huh? Who do I got in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, that won't write anything in the chat, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah! The big MMA guru here, ladies and gentlemen. The big fat turd, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker is getting his nose looked at, ladies and gentlemen, from the cut man. Whoa! De Ridder went against the rules and actually gave a knee to Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I keep seeing the doctor. Jeff Davidson, the doctor, the main doctor for the UFC. I'm going to tell a story about him. I've already told it once on this YouTube channel. I'm going to tell it again. I keep seeing him. He's wearing a white shirt, ladies and gentlemen, like a white coat, ladies and gentlemen. Keep seeing him. We got some action going on here in round 3, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Robert Whittaker's on the run, ladies and gentlemen. Him and his big penis. How can he even backpedal like that with that big penis, ladies and gentlemen? De Ridder's doing some ground and pound on Robert Whittaker and his big penis, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Robert Whittaker, pound on his face, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker, ground and pound. Robert Whittaker didn't take his penis out and start smacking De Ridder upside the head with it, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah, you heard it here from the big fat MMA guru, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the big fat guys. They always say cardio, 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 right? Yeah. Look at these guys. They don't look like they've run a mile in the last 10 years, ladies and gentlemen. Bunch of fat tubs of lard, ladies and gentlemen. Like me, the MMA guru, the big fat tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. This has to be one of the best commentating YouTube channels there is on the planet, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Did you see the clams earlier? Yeah. It's hot, ladies and gentlemen. But the UFC's fun for all, ladies and gentlemen. Just give it a moment. Robert Whittaker's huge penis is going to fall out of his trousers, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to plop down on the mat, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's going to go run screaming, this and that and everything. And then Robert Whittaker is going to pin De Ridder when he's not looking, ladies and gentlemen. And the ref's going to count out 3 counts, ladies and gentlemen. 1 fall, done, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. And then Robert Whittaker's corner, they're all going to jump in, right, ladies and gentlemen, like it's WWE, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it'd be a lot more fun than these 2 guys hugging each other in the middle of the cage, ladies and gentlemen. One thing, I'll tell you that. Me, the MMA guru, I'm getting canceled on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? Do you know why you see Kick? You see Kick there on the mat, ladies and gentlemen? It's because me, the big fat MMA guru, I'm going to Kick. That's right. Because they're canceling me, ladies and gentlemen. At least that's what Simon FECK says, ladies and gentlemen. They're still loving each other in the middle of the mat, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder is getting a little feel on that huge penis of Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. Robert Whittaker has trouble getting out of this guard right here, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard for him to twist his body around with that huge penis that he has. And you heard it here from the MMA fat guru, ladies and gentlemen. The big tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to use the microphone, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, this is exciting. We got 51 more minutes of these guys hugging each other, ladies and gentlemen. But if you were De Ridder, wouldn't you hug Robert Whittaker too? He's like your big old grandfather, ladies and gentlemen, with a huge penis. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. Why does anybody even like this? It's called combat sports, right? Me and my girlfriend, we do more than this in our bedroom, ladies and gentlemen. But that's right, I'm the big fat MMA guru, the 27-year-old virgin, ladies and gentlemen, the millionaire 27. See, that doesn't even make sense, right? Nobody's going to believe me that I'm a 27-year-old virgin. That's a millionaire. It doesn't make a bit of sense. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Whittaker is looking like he got hit by a truck, ladies and gentlemen. But don't worry, Robert Whittaker has a huge penis, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You heard it here from Simon FECK, #1 YouTuber, the MMA Guru. That's right, you heard it. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Big Tub of Lard, ladies and gentlemen. It's cardio, 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 people. That's why I don't like watching the big fat guys like me, the MMA Guru. The big fat guys, it's like not even fighting. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to come out. They're going to throw about 8 or 9 punches, ladies and gentlemen. Not a piece. Combined, ladies and gentlemen. Then they're going to hug each other for the next round or 2, ladies and gentlemen. Boring. Yeah. People forget, man. People forget that Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Robert Whittaker up against the cage, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder giving him a couple knees and everything like that, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't combat sports, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me that this hurts, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. This is why, listen, who schedules this for 5 rounds? Oh, yeah, it's the main event. Well, don't have these guys in the main event. You know they weren't going to put 5 good rounds in. Stupid. Oh, my God. Robert Whittaker went for the shoot. Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Exciting. Robert Whittaker's got De Ridder up against the cage, ladies and gentlemen. You can't get more exciting than this, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder's giving a couple knees, ladies and gentlemen. Just barely missing that huge penis of Robert Whittaker's, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. If you didn't know that Robert Whittaker has a huge penis, I'm pretty sure you do now. And I, the big fat MMA guru, the big tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the one that brought it to you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? If you're ever wondering who said that Robert Whittaker has a huge penis, it's me, the MMA guru, the big fat tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, Robert Whittaker. Oh, he's going like this. He's going like this. They're not even throwing any punches or anything. Do something. Pull your penis out, Robert Whittaker. I mean, give me some action, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. A spinning head kick to Robert Whittaker's head, ladies and gentlemen. Too bad it didn't connect, ladies and gentlemen. We got 121 left of round 4, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen more action than this in an actual, I don't know, dummy gang panel, ladies and gentlemen, with Simon FECK and ASHE on it, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, did anybody see that, what is it? All right, let me start over, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Did anybody see the MMA-holes panel last night with Simon FECK and ASHE on it, ladies and gentlemen? That was the best show I've ever seen, ladies and gentlemen. Mos from the MMA-holes never looked better, ladies and gentlemen, when he had the panel of Simon FECK and his producer, ASHE, ladies and gentlemen. Man, you should have them back, ladies and gentlemen. ASHE. Hey, ASHE. ASHE. I don't know why you're on my set. I'm the MMA guru, ladies and gentlemen. ASHE, last night, there was people typing in after it was over saying that Simon FECK, they're going to start paying to have Simon FECK on there every time. Did you see that, ASHE? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. All right, down to round 4, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully these two guys, the pre-planned fight, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully at this point, the pre-planned Robert Whittaker and de Ridder fight, hopefully they throw it out the window and actually fight this round, ladies and gentlemen. Just like Derrick Lewis said, ladies and gentlemen. Don't believe that all these fights are real, ladies and gentlemen. You're seeing one in action right now, ladies and gentlemen. How do I know? The Big Fat Guru, the Big Tub. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. How do I know? Simon FECK told me, ladies and gentlemen. Because Simon FECK is in the apex all the time, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, yeah. Back out, we got round 5, ladies and gentlemen. In the blue corner, ladies and gentlemen, we got de Ridder. In the red corner, we got Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen. de Ridder's actually getting some air, ladies and gentlemen, making it look like he's got cardio. Why don't you use that cardio and knock Robert Whittaker's head off? It's a bunch of bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the big fat, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the big fat guru, ladies and gentlemen. Uh-oh, we got to get some head movement, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, up against the cage is Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen, with his big penis, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully Robert Whittaker doesn't get his penis caught on the fence, ladies and gentlemen. Because Sofia Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen, Sofia Whittaker sewed a special pocket in Robert Whittaker's pants, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. To hold his big penis in, ladies and gentlemen, so it doesn't flop out and scare everybody, ladies and gentlemen. 3 minutes and 25 seconds left of a boring fight, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker up against the cage again, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't seen action like this, ladies and gentlemen, since my ex-wife left, ladies and gentlemen. She was a wild one, ladies and gentlemen. But remember, I'm the MMA guru. I'm the 27-year-old virgin, millionaire 27-year-old virgin, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my God. de Ridder's just doing love taps to Robert Whittaker, ladies and gentlemen. This is ridiculous. Mos, listen to me, Mos. Mos, from the MMA-holes, listen to me, Mos. I told you. Well, Simon FECK told you. Listen, Mos. Mos from the MMA-holes. Simon FECK told you that this Whittaker de Ridder fight is going to go 5 rounds to decision. You owe me, Ross, Mos, whatever your name is, ladies and gentlemen. See, Mos from the MMA-holes. Simon FECK told you that this was going to go 5 rounds to the decision, and you didn't believe him. These two, they're camp. They called each other, okay, and made rules, their own rules. It's happening all the time, ladies and gentlemen. Simon FECK told me he's sick of it. It's a bunch of bullshit. And this stuff goes to Vegas. It's a bunch of bullshit, man. Minute 20 seconds left. All of a sudden now, we're going to have a fight. Ridder comes up. Here they are. Instead of laying down on the canvas, ladies and gentlemen, hugging each other, they're going to lay against the fence and hug each other, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, man. Could you imagine that the UFC, if this was your first fight that you've seen ever from the UFC, would you ever watch another fight again? I know they all can't be good. This is fake, ladies and gentlemen. All of a sudden, boxing came on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not even going to see the end of the fight. No, here it goes. Jesus. Stream begins shortly. Right in the middle of the fight. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened to the fight? All right, either Mike or Scott, listen to me. Mike or Scott, somebody, you guys outside, somebody go and fix this thing. The fight went away. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, who cares, ladies and gentlemen? I guess I'm going to have to do it myself, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Big Fat MMA GURU, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be kidding me, ladies and gentlemen. What happened to the fight, ladies and gentlemen? That's it. Okay, now the fight's over. Way to go. When those two guys get in here, I'm firing them. Both Mike and Scott. That's right. I got ASHE now, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Here comes the decision. This is going to be a tough one, ladies and gentlemen. Here comes the decision. Mos, they're going to a decision. Simon FECK told you that they were going to go to a decision. You're acting like Simon FECK was crazy. I couldn't tell you yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. And neither could Simon FECK, ladies and gentlemen. De Ridder wins, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. I got Mos. Let me tell you something. Mos. Oh my God! Robert Whittaker just pulled his huge penis out, ladies and gentlemen, and just like unraveled. Rolled like all the way halfway across the cage, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. You know another thing too? Dana White says the UFC freedom of speech works here, ladies and gentlemen. Remember when Bryce Mitchell was talking about going fishing with Adolf Hitler and everything, and everybody got upset, and Dana White said freedom of speech? Over here in Abu Dhabi, they won't let you use your walkout music, ladies and gentlemen. The UFC needs to preach freedom of speech across the planet, ladies and gentlemen. That's a bunch of bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. You have the UFC like the UFC is the UFC. And if the music has to be changed, then it shouldn't be there, ladies and gentlemen. Take a stand, Dana White. But you won't. These guys are lining people's pockets, ladies and gentlemen. There's only 30 years left of oil over there anyways, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your world news today, ladies and gentlemen. This just in, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker said that he got tired carrying his huge penis around. That's why, yeah, he's got to work on his cardio. Yep, that was just in, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker ran out of cardio, ladies and gentlemen, carrying around his big penis, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from the MMA guru here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, the big fat tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If Robert Whittaker, listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. The big fat guru here, ladies and gentlemen. If Robert Whittaker would put the extra work in cardio because he's got that huge penis to carry around, Robert Whittaker needs to put more work into cardio, more than anybody else, because he's got to carry around that huge penis, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, that was the best. That was some of the best fighting I've ever seen in my life, ladies and gentlemen. They got to start having fights more often at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, ladies and gentlemen. If this was in England, listen to me, people, because I'm from England. I'm the big fat MMA guru, ladies and gentlemen. If this fight was in England, people would be complaining that Dana White is not sensitive to the English people, ladies and gentlemen. Having it in a small market, they think that it should be on prime time, UK time, ladies and gentlemen. But listen to me. The English people would be complaining that the first fight was at 2 a.m., ladies and gentlemen. The people over there in Abu Dhabi aren't going around complaining, ladies and gentlemen. Not one single person in Abu Dhabi is complaining that the fight started at 2 a.m., ladies and gentlemen. Somebody's in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody wants to ask MMA Guru, the big fat turd, a question, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. I don't know if we can read it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try to find. Here it is. We got a magnifying glass, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what we got, ladies and gentlemen. The ASHE. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the ASHE in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Big Fat MMA Guru, the Big Tub of Lard. We got ASHE in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, 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 yeah. We got ASHE in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Simon FECK doesn't have ASHE in the building, ladies and gentlemen. What else we got here, ladies and gentlemen? I was annoyed at Rub in the Fifth and the Scott. Listen, the Big Fat MMA Guru can't read any of this stuff. The Big Fat MMA Guru needs ASHE on StreamYard to read this stuff to me, the Big Tub of Lard, the Big Fat MMA Guru. I need ASHE to read this stuff to me. I can't see it with this white screen in my face, ladies and gentlemen. It's too tough to see. I have to be Simon FECK, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to read any of this shit, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! So de Ridder wins, ladies and gentlemen. It's no secret, ladies and gentlemen. He needed to throw more right hands. I was annoyed at Rob in the fifth. He needed to throw more right hands. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, the MMA Guru here, the Big Tub of Lard. Ladies and gentlemen, our expert in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, by the name of ASHE, ladies and gentlemen, he says Whittaker needs to throw more right hands in the fifth round, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Nobody else has experts in the chat like the Big Fat MMA Guru, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We got to have ASHE. I'm going to put ASHE in, listen to me. I'm going to put ASHE in contact with Robert Whittaker and Sofia Whittaker. And I'm not going to say that, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Michael Bisping, ladies and gentlemen. Rebecca, why didn't you come, Rebecca? Rebecca, why didn't you come to Abu Dhabi, Rebecca? Why didn't you come, Rebecca? Yeah. I mean, people forget, man. People forget that ASHE is an MMA expert, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, coming in my chat, ladies and gentlemen, the producer of the Simon FECK Show, ladies and gentlemen. His name is ASHE, ladies and gentlemen. Coming in the Big Fat Guru's chat, ladies and gentlemen, telling me, the Big Tub of Lard, that Robert Whittaker has to throw more right hands in the fifth round, ladies and gentlemen. Simon FECK could take him. Listen. Simon FECK could take him and his producer, ASHE, and walk over here to Newcastle, ladies and gentlemen, and fight my cousin, Mick Parkin, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You heard it here. I'm finally going to admit it. Simon Feck's been going around telling everybody that me, the Big Fat Guru, is a cousin of that big fat turd Mick Parkin, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's right. Mick Parkin is my cousin, ladies and gentlemen. Mick Parkin's family is in the furniture business. My family, the Big Fat MMA Guru, is in the furniture business. And check this out, ladies and gentlemen. What's that guy? I always forget his name. The guy was supposed to fight John Jones. What's his name? The champ guy. It's funny. It's funny that that champ, listen to me. It's funny that that champ, whatever his name is, what is it? Tom Aspinall, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody has forgot who Tom Aspinall is, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as John Jones retired, nobody knows who Tom Aspinall is anymore. He's nothing. Well, let me start over, ladies and gentlemen. Me, the Big Fat MMA Guru. Yeah, that's right. My cousin is none other than the heavyweight, ladies and gentlemen, Mick Parkin. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mick Parkin's family is in the furniture business. Same with my family, ladies and gentlemen. The Big Fat MMA Guru, furniture, ladies and gentlemen. And guess who else, ladies and gentlemen? Guess who else is in the furniture business? The family of the Tom Aspinall, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We're all intertwined together, ladies and gentlemen. You see, you look at my big head, the Big Fat MMA Guru. Look at this big head, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, by the way, does this mask make my face look fat, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, I'm the Big MMA Guru. Does this mask make my face look fat? You know, I'm the big tub of lard. Does it make my face look fat? If you look at Mick Parkin's head, take a look at Mick Parkin's head, ladies and gentlemen. Mick Parkin's head is this big, ladies and gentlemen. The MMA Guru's head is this big, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Aspinall's head isn't all that small either, ladies and gentlemen. There's one thing that Simon Feck doesn't go around telling people. Simon Feck doesn't go around telling people that me, the MMA Guru, is cousins with Mick Parkin, ladies and gentlemen, and my cousin also is Tom Aspinall, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Me, the Big Fat MMA Guru, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody's in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody's the #1 chat person, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's right. I'm just a big fat English turd, ladies and gentlemen. From London, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I tell all you people that I moved out, ladies and gentlemen. But I slipped about 3 weeks ago. I went and told everybody that I raised the rent on myself, and I started paying my mom more money. I still live at home, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a 27-year-old virgin, ladies and gentlemen. A millionaire, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That Big Fat MMA Guru. Down goes Nina Drama, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just a big fat tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. You see it? Right there, big fat tub of lard, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Later on, we got what's his name? Robert Whittaker. It's going to be coming on with Conor McGregor and myself. We're going to be lifting weights, ladies and gentlemen, with our penises, ladies and gentlemen. Because Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC. And people forget, man. Listen to me. People forget, man. People forget that Lorisenko's hot, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to me. People forget that Lorisenko is hot, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care how old she is. That's right. Listen. Lorisenko is hot. I mean, take a look at that. I'm a 27-year-old fat tub of lard from London, ladies and gentlemen. From Breckenridge, ladies and gentlemen. Just east, you know what I'm talking about, of Brixton, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, Lorisenko, I don't care if Lorisenko's 48 years old, ladies and gentlemen. Lorisenko's hot, and I'll tell you why, ladies and gentlemen. Lorisenko has a job, ladies and gentlemen, a cool fucking job, ladies and gentlemen. She's an ex-fighter, ladies and gentlemen. And everything that you hear going around in the Apex, ladies and gentlemen, you definitely want Lorisenko, ladies and gentlemen. And if that didn't make sense, I'm not going to clarify it, Eddie. I'm not going to clarify it any more than that, ladies and gentlemen. Because Lorisenko watches my stream, ladies and gentlemen. Here's another one, too. Bryce Mitchell. Bryce sucks. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the needed drama talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. The needed drama talking showerhead. The needed drama talking showerhead did not tell Bryce Mitchell to go out fishing with Adolf Hitler, ladies and gentlemen. The needed drama talking showerhead told Bryce Mitchell to go out fishing with Adolf Hitler and cut his head off and use it for shark bait, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody told Bryce Mitchell to go out fishing with Adolf Hitler. The Nina Drama talking showerhead told Bryce Mitchell to go out fishing with Adolf Hitler and cut his head off, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen. Jackson McVeigh right here, ladies and gentlemen. What a great debut. Derek Goldberg, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, ladies and gentlemen. You got Nina Drama. Listen to me. Nina Drama is trying to go around and get in the belt. You got to follow me now, ladies and gentlemen. Where did it go, ladies and gentlemen? The Nina Drama talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. Got Mike Perry here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, ladies and gentlemen. You see her right here, ladies and gentlemen. We got a new sponsor, ladies and gentlemen. The new sponsor of the MMA Guru. The new sponsor of the MMA Guru YouTube channel, ladies and gentlemen. It's none other than the Nina Drama talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. And right here, ladies and gentlemen, there's a prototype, ladies and gentlemen. It's not only a shower head, ladies and gentlemen. It gives you wisdom. It tells you what to do, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. It's like an AI shower head, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yo, Nina Drama. This is the Nina Drama talking shower head, Nina Drama. Listen, I know that we threw away Bryce Mitchell about a year and a half ago, ladies and gentlemen. But Nina Drama, I guess we're going to have to bring Bryce Mitchell back in because you need a belt in every division. Nina Drama, we're going to have to bring him back, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, listen to me. Bryce Mitchell started a new company, ladies and gentlemen. Right? You know Bryce Mitchell's a flat earther, right? Bryce Mitchell started a company where you dig a hole in every major city, and then you use the bottom of the earth to travel, to miss all that traffic, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Bryce Mitchell didn't fly to Abu Dhabi, ladies and gentlemen. Bryce Mitchell went underneath the earth, ladies and gentlemen, on a horse, ladies and gentlemen. And he made it to Abu Dhabi in a couple hours, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, ladies and gentlemen. The smartest man on the planet. Even though Bryce Mitchell's IQ is like 12, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't mean 12 years old. I mean his IQ is 12. We told Bryce Mitchell, if your IQ gets to 17, sell. That's what we told Bryce Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yo. Hey. Bryce Mitchell. That was a piece of shit showing today, Bryce Mitchell. You hear me, Bryce Mitchell? This is the Nina Drama talking showerhead. But anyways, don't forget, Nina Drama dropped you like a hot potato back when you were talking about Adolf Hitler and everything like that, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that, Bryce Mitchell. Nina Drama's just going around because she wants a belt in every weight division. Do you know what I'm saying? Nina Drama. Listen to me, people. What happened to the stream, ladies and gentlemen? Did we get shut down, ladies and gentlemen? Did we get shut down, ladies and gentlemen? What happened to the stream, ladies and gentlemen? There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Something happened to the stream, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot what I was saying, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. What? Listen to me. Why do you got... I need somewhere to put the mouse, ladies and gentlemen. Scott, the mouse can't be here. I just turned the stupid thing off, man. We got people typing in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I can't read none of this, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Mila Stoner's in here. Laughing, ladies and gentlemen. Listen. Yeah. Mila Stoner in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the MMA guru, ladies and gentlemen. And I got Mila Stoner in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Lord Sanko, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what else we got, ladies and gentlemen. How is Mick these days? You know, I can't read none of this, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. You're good. Somebody else is typing, ladies and gentlemen. Laughing my ass off, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I could read it, ladies and gentlemen. The next time we go live, we're going to have Ash read everything to me, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe I'll come back on and bring my friend in, ladies and gentlemen, Simon FECK. Simon FECK can read it, but the MMA Guru can't read it because there's white screen around here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, yeah, I'm the Big Fat MMA Guru. Yeah, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Yo, need a drama. Hey, need a drama. Bryce Mitchell done went down on your dress there, need a drama. And this is the need a drama talking showerhead. Listen, yo, need a drama. Need a drama. You don't listen to me, need a drama. You don't need Bryce Mitchell. What you need a drama. You need Simon FECK. That's right. And that's the best thing that the need a drama talking showerhead has ever told anybody. Need a drama. Because Simon FECK is stuck up for you. You big stuck up bitch. Need a drama. Need a drama. Need a drama ain't nothing but a big stuck up bitch. That's right. Me, listen to me. Where you got a microphone at, ladies and gentlemen? Me, the Big Fat MMA Guru. Now we got stuff in the way and stuff. Why do I got to run the computer? Why don't one of you guys run the computer? Why do I got to run the computer? Now I forgot what I was going to say. I had something good to say. Unbelievable. Me, the Big Fat MMA Guru. Listen to me. I used to have a rat in the Apex, and his name is the Sewer King. And if you don't know who the Sewer King is, then I don't know what to tell you. But the Sewer King, Jose Yuns, was my rat inside the Apex, ladies and gentlemen. And then I said something about Amy Kaplan, if you guys remember that. I said something to Amy Kaplan about, Amy Kaplan's appearance, right? And then this one here, Nina Drama stuck up for Amy Kaplan. But Amy Kaplan's boss is Jose Yuns, the Sewer King. The Sewer King went on Musical MMA's music video. It's called Maneater, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a dig on Nina Drama. But Amy Kaplan didn't tell Nina Drama that her boss is the Sewer King who played guitar on that Musical MMA song, The Buddy of the MMA Guru. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, right here. Where's he at? You see that big warrior haircut right there, ladies and gentlemen? This is Mos from the MMA-holes, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mos, ladies and gentlemen. You see that? Only a warrior would wear a haircut like that, ladies and gentlemen. Mos from the MMA is a warrior, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You heard it here from the MMA Guru, the Big Fat Tub of Lard. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Big Fat Tub of Lard, ladies and gentlemen. Now, right over here, ladies and gentlemen, Mos has a clan, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Mos's clan. Mos from the MMA-holes, his clan sent a selfie to the Big Fat MMA Guru, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that selfie, ladies and gentlemen. We just keep that up right over here, ladies and gentlemen. That's Mos's clan. Little selfie from Mos's clan, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Big Fat MMA Guru, and me and Conor McGregor and Robert Whittaker with the huge penis. Robert Whittaker with the biggest penis in the UFC. We're all going to lift weights together. the Big Fat MMA Guru, Conor McGregor, and Robert Whittaker are all going to lift weights with our penises, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we do after every fight, ladies and gentlemen. We get together and we lift weights with our penises. But Robert Whittaker always wins. You know why Robert Whittaker always wins? Because he's got the biggest penis in the UFC, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whittaker has the biggest penis in the UFC. And you heard it from Nina Drama's talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. Here's Nina Drama. Ladies and gentlemen, the MMA Guru Show brought to you by, sponsored by, ladies and gentlemen, none other than the Nina Drama talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. It's not any ordinary showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. The Nina Drama showerhead gives you wisdom, tells you what to do, makes you smarter, because it knows everything that you need to do, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. It's no ordinary showerhead. The Nina Drama talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. This is only a prototype, though, ladies and gentlemen. The MMA Guru Show is brought to you by the Nina Drama talking showerhead, ladies and gentlemen. Yo, why does the Nina Drama talking showerhead have a male voice? Huh? Hey, Nina Drama. Nina Drama, this is Nina Drama talking showerhead. Hey, why do you and your boyfriend go all around the world and interview fighters in every different weight class? Why is that, Nina Drama? Yo, listen to me. We got a show going on, ladies and gentlemen, and you guys don't turn your phones off. It doesn't make a bit of sense. Turn your phone off. We got YouTube Gold going on here, ladies and gentlemen, and your phone's ringing. So, who's in the chat, ladies and gentlemen? Let's see if we can read one of these things, ladies and gentlemen. Good work, Guru. What a show. Yeah. What a show, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. What a show, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the head movement, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. What a show, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the talking showerhead of Nina Drama, ladies and gentlemen. The Nina Drama talking showerhead is the best showerhead in the business. I mean, listen, Nina Drama, I need you to go easy on the MMA Guru. The MMA Guru is just a virgin, Nina Drama. The MMA Guru is a 27-year-old virgin, Nina Drama. You're going to have to take it easy on him, Nina Drama. What are you saying? Huh? MMA Guru, what are you saying? Are you saying that I'm doing any kind of fucking stupid shit? Huh? I'm an ex-playmate. That's right, I'm an ex-playmate, you big fucking stupid head. What do you think I'm gonna do? Huh? I ain't gonna touch that big fat tub of lard, you big fucking stupid head. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest referee of all time, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Glenn, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. What else we got here, ladies and gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen. What are we going to do? Who's in the chat, ladies and gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen.